It's the San Francisco 49ers and the Los Angeles Rams in Week 10. How did the San Francisco 49ers slow down Matthew Stafford, who's really dealing right now for the Rams, and some new names popping up on the injury report, not surprisingly to our listeners. Let's talk about it, all of it, getting ready. Keys to victory for the 49ers in Week 10 right now. Locked On 49ers.
You are Locked On 49ers, your daily San Francisco 49ers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On 49ers. Brian Peacock and Eric Crocker at BD Peacock at Coach Crocky. Thanks, everybody, for making us your first listen on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Love our everydayers. Thanks for hanging out with us. Welcome to the new listeners as well. Make sure you're subscribed up on YouTube and everywhere you get your podcasts. And today's episode of Locked On 49ers brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first ticket purchase. The Rams are hot right now, Croc. They haven't lost since they played the 49ers in Week 5, that Thursday nighter. They had a bye week in there too. And they've allowed a total of 20 points over the course of 3 football games in that time. And Matthew Stafford, look, I talked a little bit about earlier this week. Matthew Stafford will throw the ball to the other team sometimes. You know, he's a wild stallion. He's been that guy since he was coming out of Georgia, 2009 draft. He led the league in interceptions, I think, a couple of times at some point in his career. And I'm like, yeah, let's really just take a little bit of a look, because my guy Travis Rogers on the crossover is like, yeah, Matthew Stafford should be high, if not leading the MVP conversation this year. You know what? Yeah, man, he has been playing really well. Let me look a little bit deeper into his numbers. Dude is dealing. Matthew Stafford, Croc, is dealing like crazy right now. We're talking 2 interceptions to 21 touchdowns on the season. 67% passing, which is kind of like right on his career average, or at least his recent career average. He was in the 50s to start his career for a few years there with the Detroit Lions. But man, 2 interceptions. Last year he had 8 picks. The year before that, 11. Then before that, 8. Then he led the league in interceptions in 2021 with 17. But he had 41 touchdown passes that year. That was his first year at the Rams in 2021. And so it's a guy that I thought threw the ball to the team even more, even when he was throwing the ball to the other team a lot in his career, it wasn't as much as I thought. And this year it's some downright Aaron Rodgers MVP-like efficiency with his numbers. 21 touchdowns, 2 interceptions so far this year for Matthew Stafford. And another thing I talked about with Travis Rogers is maybe a blessing in disguise. Puka Nacua getting hurt a little bit, and Matthew Stafford being forced to throw to some other receivers and maybe build some more rapport with Devontae Adams. And now he's got Puka and Adams and his entire team at his disposal, a multitude of tight ends to throw to, young and old, and obviously Kyron Williams as well. It's the number one key to the game. We're going to talk about some other keys to the game, Croc, but Matthew Stafford's the number one key to the game for the San Francisco 49ers when you look at this Los Angeles Rams football team.
You know, we got a question in the chat that says, whatever happened to Stafford's back injury? I'm wondering the same thing, because this guy's
Make him feel it. Make him feel it again this week. That's the key. That's the key to the football game.
Yeah, they're going to have to. Right now, he's leading the NFL in touchdown passes while playing a game less than a lot of the guys that are trailing him, right? Justin Herbert is next in line. He has played 9 games. Now, right below him at 17, Aaron Rodgers. So Aaron Rodgers, it might be the year of the old guys, right? The guys that you thought were old and washed up. Matthew Stafford's back was a big storyline this offseason. And there were discussions around Jimmy Garoppolo, and even Sean McVay was asked about Jimmy Garoppolo, and he said, hey, got the best backup quarterback in all the NFL. And a lot of people thought that Jimmy Garoppolo would have to start, a quarter or so of the season. But Matthew Stafford's been out there, and clearly he's playing at a very high level. And I think the reason why this is one of the better versions of Matthew Stafford that we've seen, not only because he's this old, wily veteran, but they're also leaning on the run game. It's not all on him to be the guy. He doesn't have to throw to win games. If you go back to the Detroit Lions days, I want to say they had 1,000-yard rusher the entire time he was there, and I believe it was Reggie Bush in a season. Aside from that, they didn't have a back go over 1,000 yards, so they clearly weren't dedicated to running the ball. And now with the Los Angeles Rams this season, with Kyron Williams, with Blake Corum, they are leaning on the run game to really be a complement to the passing game. So I think that's one thing that's helped them. We talked about the key to this victory for the 49ers, and we're talking a lot about Matthew Stafford, but I think it is getting pressure on Matthew Stafford. And he's not really getting sacked a ton. You got to get pressure on him. You have to sack him multiple times. You have to get this older gentleman to be a little uncomfortable in the pocket. The issue is, and the reason why I think it's so pivotal that the 49ers get pressure on them is because 49ers aren't able to get much pressure. And they got guys banged up. And we're going to talk about another guy who's popping up on the injury report. If the 49ers can't get pressure, I think that spells trouble for the defense, especially at the level on which Matthew Stafford is playing right now.
Let's talk about that with the injury report and some of the new names that are popping up, Croc, and we'll get to some keys to victory and talk a little bit more about Matthew Stafford and how you get after him. Bryce Huff is a big one, and it was a 2 maybe plus week injury with his hamstring originally, and he's been limited this week in practice. So that's a big one for the 49ers if they can get Bryce Huff. Bryce Huff is the one defensive lineman the 49ers have left that can create some pressure on his own. So if Bryce Huff is able to go, that'll be huge for the 49ers. He's been limited in practice on Wednesday and Thursday, but there's some new names that have popped up, and I think it should probably surprise nobody who's listening to this podcast that the brand newest San Francisco 49er who was traded for 1 week ago in Keion White is now on the injury report for the San Francisco 49ers. And he's got a groin that popped up, and that was at Thursday thing. So Wednesday, he was at practice normally. Thursday, he's on the injury report, limited in practice with a, let me see, was he limited? Yeah, he was limited in practice on Thursday with a groin injury. So that's unfortunate for the 49ers for a guy that I think they're going to lean on. He basically, Keion White has to play the role of their first round draft pick in Michael Williams, I think. And maybe a combination of Keion White and Cleveland Farrell as a big end that can rush and maybe move inside. And that was kind of the role for Michael Williams this year. Michael Williams out with an ACL. And so we don't have an official roster move yet for Michael Williams. That'll happen probably on Friday, and we'll find out who exactly is going to fill his shoes on the 53-man roster. But man, Niners already thin on the defensive line. The biggest key to victory in this game is getting after Matthew Stafford, and the guy that you brought in to fill some of those shoes in Keion White now comes up with a groin injury and is limited in practice on Thursday. So hopefully he can go for the 49ers. That's a big one. And it looks like there's some other Alfred Collins has had a bunch of different. He had the calf earlier, then he had was a shoulder, I think, and now he's got a hip injury. So Alfred Collins was a new addition back to no stranger to the injury report. Alfred Collins back on the injury report, did not practice at all with a hip injury, and so he practiced in full on Wednesday. Was not on the injury report, showed up Thursday on the injury report, did not practice at all. A hip injury for Alfred Collins, and then Kalia Davis. So 3 more defensive linemen. Kalia Davis, an ankle injury. He was added to the injury report as well. And Kalia Davis he was a limited participant in practice with an ankle injury on Thursday. So there you go. 3 new names, all defensive linemen. And here's another one to keep an eye on, Croc, on the defensive side of the football. Is D. Winters. So D. Winters was limited at practice, and he's been dealing with a knee injury, and he was limited on Wednesday, and then was not able to practice at all on Thursday. So you go from limited to did not participate, and I don't know if we talked about this at all earlier this week, but I don't know if I've ever seen this on the injury report, Croc, for both Mac Jones and D. Winters. Because you know how it's the injury report's like a spreadsheet basically, and it's it says, what body part it is for injury. And so for Mac Jones and D Winters, it says knee, but it also says after that, comma, knee. It says knee for Mac Jones. It says knee for D Winters. So I don't know if that means two separate injuries to the same knee or one injury each for each knee, but I have never in my life seen that on the injury report. And the 49ers have two guys. One is the guy who's going to start at quarterback this week. We can talk about Kyle Shanahan's comments about Brock and Mac. It says knee on the injury report for D Winters, and he goes from limited to did not participate, which is not a great sign.
Well, maybe the first knee he was okay and able to be limited, and now the second knee is like, nah, I'm out. I'm out for the game. The 49ers can't afford to lose any more defensive players. I don't think the fan base needs me to tell them that. But most importantly, because of what I believe this season was for, and it was the year of growth for a lot of the young guys. D Winters, if he indeed has to miss, this is pivotal. He is banged up heading into the season. He had a lot of kind of different issues that were hurting him. We need you right now. And you have a great opportunity. Fred Warner, he's done for the season. So the growth and development of these young guys, or the inability of that because of having knee injuries, it's really just unfortunate. And that's the part that makes me feel a little sad for some of these guys. I know Kyle Shanahan's probably like, feel sad for them. What about me? I'm the one that's having to deal with all these injuries, both sides of the ball. Because you didn't just say D Winters, you said D Winters and the only healthy, valuable option at quarterback for the 49ers, Mac Jones. That Martinez, okay, whatever. But Mac has played very well. Just need him to stay healthy.
Let's talk quarterback. Kyle Shanahan's comments about Brock Purdy. Then the idea was to ramp him up a little bit at practice this week. And the vibe right now as we head into Friday, who's going to be at quarterback for the 49ers in week 10 next. This episode of Locked On 49ers brought to you by Mint Mobile. You're still overpaying for wireless. It's time to say yes to saying no. At Mint Mobile, their favorite word is no. No contracts, no monthly bills, no overages, no hidden fees, no BS. And saying yes to making the switch gets premium wireless for just $15 a month. Mint makes it simple. All plans come in high-speed data, unlimited talk and text, delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. You can bring your own phone, keep your own same phone number and contacts. And if you're ready to say yes to saying no, all you got to do to make the switch is head to mintmobile.com/lockedonnfl. And love that you're getting the same quality service that you had before, but for a fraction of the price, and the setup is super easy. You keep your own phone number and you're running in minutes. So again, all you got to do to make the switch to Mint Mobile is mintmobile.com/lockedonnfl. That's mintmobile.com/lockedonnfl. Upfront payment of $45 required, equivalent to 3 months of $15 per month. Limited time new customer offer for the first 3 months only. Speeds may slow above 35 gigabyte on unlimited plan. Taxes and fees extra. See Mint Mobile for details. This episode is also brought to you by Gametime, and I've said it before and I'll say it again. If you are a sports fan, if you are somebody who was ever wanting to go to a concert, you want to go see some bands play, you want to go see your favorite artist in concert live, you want to go see a comedy show, maybe a theater event, maybe you're a theater goer, you got to have Gametime in your pocket, ready to go. Anytime I need to go buy a ticket, the first thing I do is I go to Gametime and see if there's any great deals on Gametime. And you can get some phenomenal deals, especially on last minute seats. And it's awesome. There's nothing better than being at the stadium surrounded by fans cheering on your team. But let's be honest, getting tickets can be a hassle between queues, login screens, prices jumping at checkout. It is super frustrating. And that's why I use Gametime. It's the app that gives the advantage back to the fans. Gametime is fast, easy, backed by the Gametime guarantee. 100% authentic tickets delivered on time at the best price, and all fees included. None of those sneaky fees at checkout. What you see is what you pay. So download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and go to Gametime. FanDuel.com. Download the app, Gametime app, Locked On NFL for $20 off is the promo code. Locked On NFL. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Gametime today. All right, Croc. So we talked about some of the injuries. We can go a little bit deeper into the injury report a little bit later. We talked about why the injuries are important, more defensive line injuries. There's been a lot of infighting, I want to say. I don't know, from the 49ers community, whether it's fans, whether it's reporters, and there's a big argument online with quote unquote YouTubers versus some other people, and like who's mad about what, and fans are mad and that the 49ers didn't do anything at the trade deadline. And we've already covered this, and we had our thoughts about it post trade deadline. But there was a report from Mike Silver who said that there are some folks in the building. Now, that could be players, it could be front office, it could be John Lynch himself, that were a little bit frustrated they weren't able to get a deal done. Sleeping on it a couple times now, post trade deadline, knowing what the 49ers are up against the rest of the year, a 6-3 football team. Do you think the 49ers punted and didn't do enough and were just relegated themselves to not being a playoff football team because they didn't make a big deal at the trade deadline?
Nah, after sleeping on it a few nights, I still think that the 49ers did the right thing. If there was something that seemed reasonably priced that was going to help you this season, and you felt like, you know what, this is not just a play for this year, it's a play for years to come, then I understand it. But I think the 49ers are going to be in a really good situation to kind of build off of this season. I think a lot of things right now are masked by the 49ers having a winning record. And they're awesome, especially with what they've been dealt. But I still don't look at this team and view it as a legit Super Bowl contender, or at least in the eyes of what they've been before, right? When you think about some of the rosters, the 2019 or 2023, the health from those teams, what it looked like that was a contender. So if you want to add something to that roster, I 100% understand. Go all in. But I think it's very difficult to go all in on the season when you've been playing half the season or more than half with a backup quarterback. Guys have been banged up left and right. Your defense has been decimated by injuries. Your key guys too, Nick Bosa, Fred Warner, you're banged up. And then, oh, well, let's go get this guy. Oh, he's hurt now as well and has to miss a majority of time. Defensive tackles hurt. You're losing guys left and right. I just don't think this is a season to go all in on a trade, because I'm not sure that one player really changes the trajectory of this season.
Yeah, and the 49ers, I think, made their move. That move was Keion White. And then there was the injury to Michael Williams after that. So I understand how fans feel. And dude, to be honest with you, Mike Silver's saying there's people in the building that are frustrated. I bet John Lynch himself is frustrated that there was not a deal to be made that made sense for him. He was aggressive. I bet he was on the phone talking to every team. I bet he called every GM in the league. There was not a good deal to be made. And so I understand the frustration. There's frustration from you and I, Croc, I think. But there was no deal to be made. When you see what the rumored asking prices were for the players they didn't get, they shouldn't have done it. You can't trade for Jermaine Johnson coming off an Achilles for a second-round pick. It's a stupid move. That's not aggressive. That's dumb, right? Trading 2 first-round picks and a young player for Sauce Gardner, that wasn't aggressive. That was dumb. That was a bad move by the Colts. Now, they're going for it, and I get it, but go look at I'll tell our listeners this. The Colts have seven wins. They're having a good season. Go look at their schedule. Look at who they've beaten. They've beaten the Titans twice. They've beaten the Dolphins. They've beaten the Raiders. They've beaten like the Cardinals. They have no good wins on their roster. In fact, their first loss of the season came to the team the Niners are about to play in the Los Angeles Rams. So I don't know if even the Colts are as good as they think they are. And I think it was a big win for the Jets with what they got in return for a cornerback. But there was just not a good deal for the 49ers to make. And it's a weird conundrum that the 49ers are in, because the reason they really need to make a trade, not having Bosa, not having Fred Warner, is also the reason they can't make a big trade, is because they don't have those guys. So how can you view yourself as a Super Bowl champion?
And that's the thing, right? The 49ers could have the exact same record, but if you told me there was Nick Bosa, Fred Warner, and they were healthier offensively, then I would say, okay, yeah, maybe you do make a trade because you bring somebody, put them with Fred Warner and Nick Bosa. You are being set up in a really good spot, especially with you talked about the Colts and who they've beaten. And you look at some of these other rosters. If there was one year where the 49ers don't have to look like a legit Super Bowl contender, it may be this year, because I'm not sure anybody does. Now, Kansas City, at some point, you feel like they're going to snap their fingers and they'll get out of whatever funk they're in. But I just watched the Denver Broncos, a team that has like 2 losses on the season, and they did not look good at all. So, I mean, who are the contenders? I guess so. I guess from that standpoint, I maybe could talk myself into the 49ers being more aggressive, but it just doesn't feel like the season for that.
I don't know if you give him a pass because of the short rest. I feel like the Rams-Niners a few weeks ago on Thursday night was so much better. That was unwatchable. Raiders-Broncos on Thursday night. I'm like, man, why did we wait until the end of that game to do this podcast? This is much more entertaining than what was put out there on Prime Video for the masses.
What do you think of Ashton Jeanty? So I wasn't a big fan of him just to begin with. I was worried once he wouldn't run a 40-yard dash. I was like, then you watch him, and I'm talking to my bro. We're watching the game, and I said, "Is it me or does he just look hella slow?" And then 10 minutes later, in our group chat, my brother Brian said, "Hey, Ashton Jeanty does not look fast." I was like, "Yeah, I just told Donald the same exact thing." Yeah, it looks a lot different than when he was running in the Mountain West.
Yeah, dude. You know what I think about drafting a running back number 6 overall. So
especially that hot, be dynamic, right? If you would tell me, hey man, at number 8 we're drafted Chris McCaffrey, it's like at least he does everything. You know, he could be a receiver if you need him to be. He's a running back if you need him to be. He probably could be a quarterback if you need him to be that as well, or a return guy. He did everything at Stanford, and he was very, very, very dynamic. I don't see that with Ashton Jeanty. In college, it looked like he was better than a lot of his competition, but I didn't see like a dynamic back where that really translates to the next level. A la Ezekiel Elliott, right? When he was coming out of college out of Ohio State, it was like, yeah, okay, I get it. I get the
man. Even Zeke, he was so good, but it was such a short amount of time. Like 3 or 4 years, and all of a sudden it was like, man, this dude's 27. He looks like he's 45 years old all of a sudden.
Yeah, it was like once he
signed Let's talk 49ers Rams, keys to victory. And what do the 49ers have to do to win this one? And they're going to need some help, I think, much like they got in week 5 on Thursday night. Get into it next. This episode of Locked On 49ers brought to you by PrizePicks. Croc, we make decisions every single day on this podcast. Everyone makes decisions every day, everywhere in their life, right? But on PrizePicks, being right with those decisions can get you paid. So don't miss any of the excitement of this sports season, whether you're following the NFL, the NBA, or both. There's no better time to jump in on the action. And if you haven't tried it yet, PrizePicks is the simplest way to play. All you got to do, you pick more or less on at least 2 player stat projections. And if you get them right, you win. That's it. It takes less than 60 seconds to make a lineup, and you can play anywhere PrizePicks operates, including California, Texas, and Georgia. So, for example, you want to go Patrick Mahomes, you want to go more than on his passing yards. Maybe Steph Curry, you want to go more than on his point projections on PrizePicks. Or you can stack them. The new Stacks feature is a game changer. So you can go Steph Curry and you can go points, threes, and assists all in the same lineup. So download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code Locked On NFL for $50 in lineups. After you play your first $5 lineup, PrizePicks, it's good to be right. All right, Croc, 49ers Rams week 10. If you rewind a little bit to that Rams 49ers game in week 5, and remember there was that was post Bosa, vibes were low for the 49ers. And all of a sudden, do you remember the FanDuel betting line went from like 2.5 points, 3 points, 3.5 to 8.5 points, I think, by game time. And I think Kyle Shanahan actually referenced it. Like, that's a no-no talking about betting lines and stuff like that. But I think Kyle Shanahan was like, hold on a second, 8.5 points? And I think it was a kind of a rallying cry for the 49ers in that game, going to the Los Angeles Rams in their building, short week. They ended up winning that football game, but they needed a lot of help too. And Mac Jones was good. Remember, Mac Jones was just jumping it out quick, getting it out short. And that Rams defense, they were playing really soft. And by the end of the game, the Rams defense finally was like, oh yeah, we should probably stop doing that. And they started like manning up, playing a little tighter, and it made it a little different, a little more difficult for the 49ers later in the game. But there was the Keion Williams. He just dropped a pitch. There was a 4th and 1 stop. And the biggest play of the game was Alfred Collins, who hammered the ball out of Keion Williams' hands when he was about to plunge it into the end zone at like the 1 yard line. So there was some really big plays and some really difficult moments for the Rams in that game. And to be honest with you, the Rams maybe should have won that game, but the 49ers came, they fought, they were competitive. I think the 49ers are going to fight. They're going to be competitive. It's in their house this time too. Do you see things going differently in this game? And are there any advantages for the 49ers? Because on paper, it looks like another Rams win, but it looked like another Rams win on paper last time too.
Yeah, I've been very open about not having like huge expectations for the 49ers as they go into these games, but that was one of the games where definitely zero expectations. The 49ers win, or there as a coach, the coach in me is always trying to find the path to victory, even if you feel like you may be a little undermanned. And I think that's the 49ers in a lot of games that they're going in right now. But they have terrific coaches. They got Kyle Shanahan. They have Robert Saleh. And those guys, they figure out a way to make it to where the 49ers are very competitive. They are severely undermanned, in my opinion, with a lot of the injuries that they've had at key positions. You don't have the quarterback of your defense. You don't have one of the best defensive ends in the league. Your first-round rookie, he's done for the year. They've been without other guys that they traded for, right? Like, they're missing a lot of guys. But they've figured out a way to where we have a competent offense, and defensively, they may not shut a team out all game, but they find ways to make a play here and there that swings momentum their way. So heading into this game, I feel like, heck yeah, there's an opportunity for the 49ers to win. I do believe that because of how they are, shorthanded, they're kind of fighting with one arm behind their back, but that one arm has been super strong so far this season. So I'm excited to see just how I'm always excited watching the 49ers to see how Kyle Shanahan and Robert Saleh figure out how to just will their team to a victory. Like, what do they do? What subtle changes do they do? I'm taking notes. We need that at my school. But it's been awesome to see that. So I think there is a chance. I think there's a chance for the 49ers. I do think one of the keys, like I talked about early on, key to victory, you got to be able to pressure Matthew Stafford. I still question how they're able to do that.
Yeah, I think Robert Saleh is going to have to be very creative with the way he puts his pressure package together in this game. You hope Keion White's able to play. Got a really good note here from let's see if I can find it from, first of all, from Matt Barrows, looking at the Rams injury report. So the Rams 53-man roster, they have one player who did not practice in full. That is wide receiver Jordan Whittington, compared to the 49ers, who have 16 guys on their injury report. 4 or 5 of them did not practice at all on Thursday's practice. So that, that's a difficult one right there. And we got to talk about the quarterback too. But Noah Furtado of the of the San Francisco Chronicle, he's one of the newer writers on the beat for the San Francisco 49ers. there's a good nugget from him here. Said Keion White held the #1 pressure rate among players with at least 100 pass rush snaps on the interior. So at defensive tackle last season. So in the old Bill Belichick, who drafted him, and then who was the defensive coordinator for the Patriots last year? The old linebacker. Who was it?
Oh man.
Well, I'm blanking on who that was. Anyway,
Yeah.
similar.
But the head coach?
Yeah, the head coach last year, who was the former Patriots linebacker who took over from Bill Belichick as the head coach.
Yeah.
One and done with the Patriots. I don't know why I can't think of his name right now. But anyway, under Belichick and
Gerard Mayo.
Gerard Mayo, yes. And the year after, Keion White was moved around a little bit more, and he rushed a lot from the interior. And when he did rush from the interior, he held the #1 pressure rate among players with at least 100 pass rush snaps. So, and Keion White was asked in the locker room about that. And he said, basically, continuity is huge because it was, quote, almost like I got traded every year, going from, Belichick, and then you have a new coach who's running the same scheme, but it's a new coach. So things are run a little differently. And then you get Vrabel the following year. So, he's in the third year of his career, and it's a different coach every single time. And it feels that way for a defensive lineman. You can imagine what it feels like for some of these quarterbacks, like the Bears or the Browns or the Jets, and the quarterbacks that recently you have a coach, and then you fire your offensive coordinator, then you get a new offensive coordinator. See, Stroud's gone through that. You get a new offensive coordinator every year. That cannot be good. It's hard enough for a defensive lineman. Think of what it's like for a quarterback in those situations. But that's why I have some hope for Keion White to be like a pretty big acquisition for the 49ers down the stretch. Now he shows up on the injury report with a groin injury. Hopefully he's able to play for the 49ers. So that's a massive one for me, Brock. But listening to Kyle Shanahan on KNBR on Thursday, he was asked about Brock Purdy. And essentially, and we'll find out probably Friday. Obviously, we're recording this on Thursday night, late Thursday. He was asked about Brock Purdy and if he'd been taking first team reps this week, because the reports earlier on in the week was that they were going to try to ramp it up a little bit and see how Brock Purdy was doing with that toe, even though the toe might linger all year long. And essentially the non-answer, the non-answer, the coach speak answer that Kyle Shanahan gave was made me feel like it's 100% going to be Mac Jones once again this week. And that he didn't want to let the Rams know that. So I think a lot of people have been kind of arguing about that and talking about that since they heard Kyle Shanahan's comments. The way I read the comments, and you guys can all go listen to it if you want at KNBR, but it's going to be Mac Jones again this week. Even though he's got the knee on the injury report.
Yeah, I think the 49 fan base, I think they're good with that. I think he's built up a lot of equity and trust in the fan base. I think he built that up in the team as well. Obviously, everybody will be definitely excited to get Brock Purdy back. But with how Mac Jones has played in the majority of these games, it's hard to say, not to say that you're not missing anything. I don't want to minimize what Brock Purdy means to the team, but it doesn't feel like there's a huge drop-off, especially considering what Mac Jones has had to play through, whether it's his own injuries or the injuries from his teammates.
Keys to victory. We talked a lot about limiting Stafford. You got to have a guy on. I don't know what the coverage plan needs to be, if it needs to change with Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams. It's just going to be a tough ask. To me, the key to victory there is try to limit Kyren Williams and put Stafford in a little bit deeper third down situations and make that a little bit more difficult on him, and try to find some way to pressure him. Now, with the way the 49ers are built and all the injuries, that's kind of a tough ask right now, I think, for the 49ers. But they did a good job when they played him a few weeks ago. And then looking at the 49ers offense, they averaged 2.8 yards per carry with Christian McCaffrey in the ground game. The first time against the Rams, they were still able to win that football game. But you got to help out Mac Jones. You got to help out the 49ers banged up receiving core, still not practicing. Ricky Pearsall, he's not going to play this week. And so can they didn't have George Kittle last time. George Kittle being back, are they going to be able to run the ball a little bit more and make things more manageable, stay in front of the sticks a little bit better for for Mac Jones. I think that'll be a really important one here, Croc. Any other keys to victory for you on Sunday?
Juwan Jennings, big play from him. I think a lot of times when you see the 49ers get a big play from Juwan Jennings, that more times than not kind of leads to a victory. So he's kind of the X factor in a lot of these games. Not a high volume guy, but when he's more productive and he has those big plays, I got to look at the analytics on that, but I think it results in a lot of wins.
One of the other things that happened last time, KB going for like 167 yards or whatever it was. Like did
142.
Have one of those again?
Yeah, that was when he had the back-to-back 142-yard games. You got George Kittle back and some of the guys healthy, so I'm not sure the 49ers will quite target him with the same type of at the same rate as they did in that game. I think they just had him and Demarcus Robinson that game.
I think George Kittle has 12 catches this year. Now, obviously, he missed 5 games with the injury, but he's been around again for a few more weeks. Is this the week, Croc? We say it every week. I feel like it's part of our brand. We got to talk about it again. Can we get 10
target him 8 times?
Yeah.
Target him 8 times. Did
Only
he
8?
miss?
We went from like 12 to like, okay, maybe 10. How about 8? Well, how about 8, Kyle? Can we get 8 targets for George Kittle?
Well, they got to make up for it because on National Tight End Day, he was pretty quiet.
Yeah, he scored a touchdown at least, but
he did score a touchdown.
Efficient on his few opportunities in the passing game is George Kittle. All right, let us know what you think. What's the biggest key to victory for the 49ers against the Rams in Week 10? And, of course, Croc and I will be back post-game to break it all down. So make sure you are subscribed on YouTube and everywhere you get your podcasts. Croc and I back post-game right here. Locked On 49ers.